Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. With me in the studio, I have Professor Bola Akintoye, Director General, Bolitech Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies. Chike Ogea, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Mark Foley Hospitality Limited, and Professor David Awurawo, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies at the University of Lagos. U.S. senators made history by confirming the first black woman Supreme Court justice. 3 Republicans crossed the aisle to seal her appointment by a vote of 53 to 47. Justice Jackson's appointment fulfills President Joe Biden's campaign promise to put a black woman on the Supreme Court. He hailed her confirmation, saying she will be an incredible justice. Chuck Schumer, the majority leader, called it a joyous day for the United States. The vote was overseen by Vice President Kamala Harris, the first black woman to hold the office.
On this vote, the yeas are 53, the nays are 47, and this nomination is confirmed. Under the previous order, the motion to reconsider is considered made and laid upon the table, and the President will immediately be notified of the Senate's action.
Madam President, very happily, I note the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin.
Also, polls opened across France on Sunday for the first round of the country's presidential election. Up to 48 million eligible voters will be choosing one of the 12 candidates in an election where President Emmanuel Macron is seeking a second 5-year term, hoping to overcome a strong challenge from the far right and nationwide voter apathy. Unless a candidate gets more than half of the nationwide vote, there will be a second and decisive round on Sunday, April 24. Aside from Macron, far-right candidate Marine Le Pen and far-left firebrand Jean-Luc Mélenchon are among the prominent figures vying to take the presidential Élysée Palace. Joining us now to establish the significance of this development in the history of the United States, as well as the ongoing presidential election in France, is Professor Bolaji Akinyemi, a renowned teacher of political science and international relations, a former Director General of the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, as well as one-time Minister of External Affairs of Nigeria. Welcome to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, Professor Bolaji Akinyemi. Thank you very much indeed, Prof, for joining us.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abati. It's always a pleasure to face you across, I won't call it the firing line, but across the table for interrogation.
No, it's not an interrogation, Prof. It's a conversation. But Prof, I'm quite delighted that you agreed to be on the program today. I'd like to ask you, Ketanji Brown, her middle name used to be Onyinka. I used to think that maybe perhaps she has Nigerian connections. But now she's the first black woman to sit on the Supreme Court bench as an Associate Justice, replacing Justice Stephen Breyer, who goes on retirement in summer. And also the third black person to sit on the Supreme Court the Supreme Court bench after Thurgood Marshall and Clarence Thomas. How significant do you think that her emergence is, considering the opposition and the fact that she emerged on a bipartisan basis?
Thank you very much for that question. As an aside, I think your initial suspicion was and is right that there is a Nigerian connection to that name, Ketanji. Her mother's either cousin or sister was serving as a youth corper in Nigeria when she was born, and obviously they were still holding on to the African tradition. And so a message was sent to her about a baby girl, new baby girl being born, and she should send names. So she sent names to them, and they then picked that Ketanji. Well, there is no part of Nigeria that, one could identify with that name. So I think there was a corruption, of the African or the Nigerian name somewhere along the line. So your initial suspicion that there must have been some Nigerian connection is absolutely right. Let me, in answering your question, say this. Surprisingly, even for me, who monitors development in the United States, I didn't pay any attention to the fact that there was no black justice, and there hasn't been a black female justice on the Supreme Court. Maybe because I still have problems in defining what we call ourselves. Are we black? Are we people of color? Are we Afro-American? Or what? And given the fact that there have been, I think, 1 or 2 female judges of color on the Supreme Court, although they are what you will call Latina. They came from, I suppose, South America. That just kind of blinded me to the need for a black female justice. I just assume all along that, there have been, female judges of color. But now that this has been done, and Biden has brought it to one's attention, we should applaud it. I am struck by something she said. First generation from the plantation to the Supreme Court. In other words, tracing her own genealogy. Obviously, is something that will resonate with the American black community. And, her background is impressive. Harvard Law School, they don't come any better than that. Don't forget that Obama also went to Harvard Law School. I wouldn't pay too much attention to the fact that it was just bipartisan by a whisker, because from what a lot of commentators have said, she's even more qualified than most of those sitting on that Supreme Court right now in terms of education and in terms of experience. But this is a time of toxic politics in the United States. And so, in fact, there is a video going around, I'm sure, because I know you monitor these things. There's a video going around where you had Republican senators say, this is the most impressive candidate that I've ever come across, but I'm going to vote no against her. Her record is impressive, and twice we had voted for her to be on the bench, but I'm going to vote against her. So, those were tongue-in-cheek, sarcastic And it didn't do the Republican Party much good. But then there's nothing that's going to do the Republican Party much good. And I don't think the fact that 47 Republicans voted against her is not going to count in her record when history is being told. They will simply regard those 47 as aberrations themselves. I mean, I look forward. Obviously, we know that she's a social activist, unlike Clarence Thomas, who, if you don't mind my making a slight detour to Clarence Thomas, his wife had been implicated in the what I will call the rejectionist movement to subvert democracy in America. Honestly, what is he then still doing on the Supreme Court? Should he not be impeached by now? But then the Democrats are so, well, what would you call it? I don't know. The Democrats are so refined, unlike, the crooks who are in the Republican Party, that they're just ignoring him. But maybe an email will surface where the wife will have sent an email saying, my husband has promised if this gets to the Supreme Court, I, Clarence Thomas, will vote against Biden and vote for Trump. Surely that should get him off the Supreme Court.
Prof, I mean, Ketanji Jackson's nomination was broadly supported by the liberal community and also by civil rights activists. And 3 Republicans made confirmation possible. All of this, I guess, in line with President Biden's attempt to diversify the Supreme Court. But how far will it go, considering the fact that the balance in the U.S. Supreme Court is still 6-3, with the conservatives still in the majority? What difference can Judge Jackson stepping into the shoes of Justice Breyer in summer make?
Well, you're absolutely right. She's not going to make a difference, not now. But she's a young justice. And she probably will outlive the people like Clarence Thomas and the other conservatives, on the court. There's been this suggestion, and Biden came close during the campaign to saying it was on the table, which is that they should expand the number of justices on the Supreme Court. A lot of people don't realize that there's nothing sacrosanct about the number 9. It's not in the American Constitution. Somewhere along the line, they just, got to 9 justices and they stopped there. But don't forget that President Roosevelt, when the court was proving recalcitrant on his New Deal, the package of legislation to tackle the Depression in the United States, he threatened that he will pack the court. He will appoint more judges. And that resonated with the Supreme Court, and they started to reverse themselves at that time. So nothing prevents the Democrats, by simple legislation, simple majority, say we fix the number from 9 to 12, and we will appoint 3 more judges. Nothing, except that if the Republicans then come back to the Senate, as people are afraid that they will come during the midterm elections, they also could now say, well, we are now expanding the court from 12 to 15 to get back their majority, and that this will just start to make a laughing stock of the American Supreme Court. But you are absolutely right. It's going to take ages before her presence on the court will make a difference.
Well, Prof, let's go quickly to France, where the polls have opened today in a new round of presidential elections. And President Emmanuel Macron certainly wants a second time. But he's facing a very serious far-right challenge from Marine Le Pen and also from a gentleman called Planchon. And, the polls have started. They are voting. There's voter apathy, we're told, in many parts of France. The major issues in the election are cost of living, also rising energy bills. Well, that may be understandable in the light of the crisis within the global community. Do you think that this election will be determined in the first round, or we're going to have most likely a cliffhanger? And does Emmanuel Macron, does he stand a chance? What's your take?
I believe that the election will go to a second round. French elections, for some reason, always go to a second round because of their constitutional provision that you must have an absolute majority. You must cross, that bar of 50 plus 1%. And as you rightly pointed out, given the voters' apathy, very few presidents. I don't even remember when was the last time a French presidential candidate made it across the bar during the first run. So I think that we are going to have a second run. During the election, the first election run by Macron, he faced Le Pen, Madame Le Pen. He faced her in the second run, and he beat her convincingly, because at that time, the left wing and the socialist voters confronted with their rascality in the first run. And the reason I call it rascality is there are 12 candidates running during this first ballot. 12. And some of them, like in Nigeria here, is just to have presidential aspirant after their names. That's why they are running. They don't stand a chance. And the rascality of especially the left-wing voters in France, they know there's going to be a second run. So during this first term, they can afford to throw their ballots anywhere. But during the second term, faced with the possibility of a right-wing Le Pen in the Élysée, usually vote for, they will vote for Macron during the second term. That's my prognosis. However, politics has become a cemetery for prophets of electoral developments or prophets of politics in Europe, in general, and even in America. Who would have thought that Trump would beat Mrs. Hillary Clinton? I went to bed, already chilling at the bottle of champagne, only to wake up to find out that I have to put that bottle away for another 4 years. But I think this time I can stick out my neck to say Macron will make it, especially because his role in the Russian-Ukrainian war has actually elevated his status in France, who love to see their country since Napoleon time They love to see their country, playing that Napoleonic role as a European power, a global power. And I think he's played it very well in the way he has sought to negotiate with Putin. So, and I think at that second time, he could probably emphasize that. That's my take on it. We will, by tomorrow, we will have known whether there will be a second run or not.
Well, Prof, if, as you are predicting, President Emmanuel Macron wins, it will be the first French president since Jacques Chirac in 2002 to win re-election. You have pointed to the fact about his Napoleonic, symbolism, but it's also the case that he had issues with tax, which led to the Yellow Vest movement protests across France, the biggest protest in more than a decade. And also, his record with regard to the management of the COVID-19 pandemic has also been very controversial. Don't you think that with all of this and voter apathy, today alone, only about 24.28% persons have turned out in all parts of France? But I get the explanation you offered. Don't you think it's all up in the air? And at the far right, on whose side public sentiments will seem to lie, may well get Macron out of office?
Well, you are quite right, Dr. Abati. That's why I said that projecting results of elections in Europe has made fools of a lot of us who are political scientists. The French are basically anarchists when it comes to reform of the French system. There are so many parts of the French system which are antiquated, a drain of the French economy, and yet God help any French president who wants to reform that system. And that is why he's running into problem, because he came in with a promise of reform and he's run smack into the trade union movement in France. Like other European countries, he had run into resistance, as rightly pointed out, over the COVID-19 policies, something which the French share with other European countries. And this issue of refugees is something that has, given additional measure to the right-wingers in Europe, because the refugees, until the Russian-Ukrainian war, the refugees have been people of a different religion, people of a different color, people from a different continent. And basically, these have been strangers. And this has fueled support for the right-wingers. Le Pen is basically anti-refugee, anti-immigration, and she had even pledged to deport undocumented immigrants, and also pledged support to stop ladies wearing hijab. So you are right. It's going to be a toss-up. 3 weeks ago, it was 20% gap between Le Pen and Macron. Now it's 2 to 3%. But I still believe that there will be a second run, and faced with the possibility of Le Pen in the Elysee, the left-wingers, will come to their senses. But then don't forget, this was also the way I predicted no to Brexit. And I woke up the following morning to find out that the left-wing youth votes had gone to the beach on the day of the voting, and it's the empire people who then had the majority vote for Brexit. So I don't know, it's going to be a toss-up. I'm not going to put my money on it.
With you, Prof. But at the end of the day, out of all the 12 candidates, only 3 are in the front line. Macron, Marine Le Pen, and Mélenchon. Now, if it comes to a second round, Mélenchon may become the beautiful bride. Who do you think is likely to align with to be the decider? Marine Le Pen or President Macron? Because it could come to that.
Yes, it could come to that. But he is splitting the right-wing vote as it is. And more often than not, you'll discover that they hate each other more than they hate Macron. And he may simply tell his people not to go out to vote. I don't see him asking his supporters to vote for Macron. Look at what happened. I'm not just whistling in the dark. Look at what happened in that Georgian Senate vote when Trump simply told the Republicans not to bother to vote. And of course, that led to Georgia in its history electing 2 Democratic senators. So, rather than swallow his pride and ask everybody to rally around Le Pen, he may simply secretly prefer Macron to go to the Elysee rather than Madame Le Pen.
Well, Prof, just before we begin to round up now, I wanted to ask you about this report by Jihad Analytics. Jihad Analytics is saying Nigeria has overtaken Iraq as the country where the Islamic State and in the Islamic State of West African province, ISWAP, has been most active. While Nigeria has recorded this year alone over 600 cases of attacks, Iraq has recorded a significant lower number of about maybe 120. Does this bother you that Nigeria has suddenly becomes the capital of terrorism in the world, according to Jihad Analytics? That is. And are you embarrassed that the administration has not been able to do anything about this?
Dr. Abati, you had a gentleman whom I know very well from my time in government on your sister program, and you raised this issue of security, the state of security in Nigeria. And something struck me. A lot of things he said struck me, but this one particularly struck me. He said only 2 people, I'm paraphrasing him now, know what really is going on. And that is the president and I don't even know what you will call them, jihadists, bandits, kidnappers. I don't know what time you will call them. But that they have said there was a deal between them and the president. And the president should come out and fulfill his part of the deal. And he said he's calling on the president to come and tell Nigerians what that deal is. And that frightens me. That, I mean, you know, I've been the foreign minister of this country, traveled all around the world, being received with respect, with attention. I mean, we just finished talking about France. Mitterrand was the president at that time. He was on leave, his annual leave, when I showed up in France in January 1986. He cut short his leave to come and receive me at the Elysee. And his foreign minister said to me, this has never happened before. Our president never cut short his leave, and yet he's cut short to receive you. The same country, 40 years later, is now on the point of, well, I can't put it better than the analysts have put it. We've become the headquarters of terrorism in the world. And I don't think we're helpless. I think the government just doesn't want to do anything about it because of this pact which they have between the two of them. Well, nothing lasts forever. Okay? Nothing lasts forever. I think it's 415 more days for this regime, and a new one will come in. And I think we will survive. I mean, we are 200 million people. We are not even fighting a million jihadists. And we will survive it. I have to be optimistic that we will survive it.
Yes, as optimistic as Veno Mario guy who said, Nigeria will survive, Nigeria go survive, Nigeria go survive, oh, Nigeria go survive. Well, optimism. Well, but finally, Prof, in Ghana, the government has taken a decision that transactions should no longer be held in any currency other than the Ghana cedi. And that it's an offense to transact business in any part of Ghana using foreign currency. And the punishment is about 18 months imprisonment or a fine. Is there any lesson that Nigeria can learn from that to strengthen the Naira? The Ghanaian economy, of course, is in big trouble. Interest rate there is over about 17% at the moment, and there are issues as a result of the global distortions within the economy. But is there any lesson Nigeria can learn from that to rescue the Naira, to save the Naira?
Do you know, I believe there is a law actually in Nigeria that you cannot spend foreign exchange for transactions within Nigeria. I read that somewhere. But then, like everything else in Nigeria, the law is more for breaking since nobody wants to enforce the law. But I think there is a law. That's the first point I'd like to make. The second one, I hope we are getting it right, that it is just limited to internal economic transactions, and that it is not being extended to the international trading transactions between Ghana and other countries. Because if it is the latter, especially given what is going on between Russia and the rest of the world, in whether you will use rubles or not, the Ghana government better be careful. Because when you read the secret emails of Hillary Clinton. One of the reasons, if not the major reason, they decided to assassinate Muammar Gaddafi was because he was going to replace dollar as the transactional currency for oil, for petroleum, with a new gold standard that will be attached to an African currency. That's why they went after him. I hope that's not what Ghana, the import of Ghana's legislation. But if it is internally, we also have such a law. It's like, again, that law about don't spray currency on the head of people at a party. We all see videos of people doing this. What does the FCC do about it? What does the central bank do about it? Absolutely nothing. And yet the law is there. What Nigeria needs to do is to enforce its own law rather than honor it by ignoring it.
Well, on that note, I would like to thank you very much, Professor Bolaji Akinyemi, for joining us on This is Live, the Sunday talk show. Thank you very much, sir, for taking us through these, topical international issues. Thank you very much, Professor Akinyemi.